So welcome to this lesson. My name is Alex Mohembi, and I will be taking you through this lesson. So we are going to cover one of the unit, which is undertaken by the students doing a certificate in supply chain management. And the unit title is Warehousing and Stock Control. So allow me to share what we are going to cover throughout this session. So as you can see, this is what we are going to cover today throughout the session. And the topic that we are going to look at is packaging. So I've shared there, you can be able to see that. And as I've introduced myself, my name is Alex Mohembi from the Department of the School of Business and Economics. So without taking much time, let me go to the expected learning objectives or the learning outcomes, which you as the learner, you are expected to have achieved by the end of this topic. So we can go through the expected learning objectives. So by the end of this topic, you should be able to, number one, define the term packaging. As I've said earlier on, the topic is packaging. So you are expected to define the term packaging. And again, you should be able to list the purpose, the objectives, the functions of packaging materials, because we shall be looking at packaging materials and the types of packages. Again, you should be able to explain the factors to consider in selecting and packaging of materials. Which factors needs to be considered if you are going to select and package the materials. Again, you should be able to name various types of packages, or we call them types of packaging. So you should be able to name them. And lastly, you should be able to explain the challenges packaging. So let's go through each and every area we have mentioned above. So we will start with the meaning of packaging. And it is good for us to understand what is packaging. So when you talk about packaging, packaging may be defined as the general group of activities in product planning, the general grouping of activities in product planning, which involve designing and producing the container or wrapper for a product. So it is involving designing, and after designing, you are going to produce the container or the wrapper for a product. So that is what we call a packaging. Now, having understood that, it is also very essential for you to understand what is packing, because in most cases, people tend to confuse between packaging and packing, and that is why we also need to understand what is packing. So packing is the process of covering, the process of wrapping, or creating goods into a package. So that is what we call packing, the process of covering, wrapping, or creating goods into a package. Creating comes from the word crate. You know crate, eh? Yes. So this is done for the purpose of delivering the materials to the customer or for the purpose of transportation. So we do packing for the purpose of delivering the materials to the customer or for the purpose of what? Transportation. And in that case, it is going to make it convenient for us to transport the materials from one place to another. Now that is the meaning of packaging. Now let's go now to the functions, or we call it objectives, or the purpose of packaging. So that is what we need to go through. Now, I've highlighted here some of the functions or some of the objectives of packaging. Now, they are not limited to what I've highlighted here. There are more, but we can go through the ones I have highlighted for you. Now, number one of the function of packaging or one of the objective is to protect its content in transit, in storage, and in use. So we are protecting the content of the material which are in transit. Transit means they are to be transported, isn't it? Yeah, or they are being transported. So it is going to protect the content of the material which are in transit, which are also in storage, and which are also in use. So that is one of the function of packaging. Number two is to assemble and arrange the contents in the desired form. So we are trying to assemble, putting together or arranging the content of the material in the form that we want it to be, in the desired form. Another function is to identify the contents. We are identifying the contents, the brand, and even the maker. So that is another function. Another function is to facilitate retailers' function. So it is making it easier for the retailers. And again, another function is to enable the display of content. So it is also enabling the display of what? The content. You know, if you have packaged materials together, or if you put them in a packet, you can easily display them. But if you've not done it, then it's very difficult for you to display the content of the material. Another function or another objective of packaging is to help in complying with the legal requirements. So we are trying to comply. We are trying to be in hand with the law. Yes, so with the legal requirements. Again, another function is marketing, or we said their functions or purpose or objective is marketing. Now, here we are saying that the packages can be used by marketers to encourage potential buyers to purchase the product. So they are used by marketers. If you have packaged it, then it makes it easier to facilitate in marketing. Another function of packaging is containment, or what you call agglomeration, containment or agglomeration. Now, in this case, this is what it means, that small items are usually grouped together in one package for reasons of efficiency. For example, you could have a single box of 1,000 pencils. It requires less handling than 1,000 single pencil. Now try to imagine you have on one side you have a single box, just one box, which is having 1,000 pencil. Now in this case, a box is a package. And on the other hand, you have just 1,000 single pencils, which are split there, or they are just placed there. Now, which one requires less handling and which one requires more handling? So you'll realize that a single box, that box, it will require less handling. So we are doing that for the purpose of containment or agglomeration. So those are some of the purpose or some of the functions or objectives of packaging. Now we can move on to the next item. We are going to look at the factors determining methods of packaging. What factors needs to be considered if you are going to determine which method of packaging you would want to use? So let's look at the factors now. One of the factor, and this is very key, is the nature of contents in terms of their value. That is, as a factor, the nature of the content. And here we are looking at it in terms of their value, physical composition, and durability. So that is one of the factors, the nature of the content. Secondly, we have the length of distribution channel. So if you are going to consider a method of packaging that you would want to use, first of all, you need to consider the length of the distribution channel. Here we're talking about the distance to be covered. So you'll be able to know which method is suitable for your packaging. Another factor is the variation in climatic conditions, which may be encountered between the point of manufacturer and the buyer. So the climatic condition is also a factor. Another important factor is the cost involved. Now, in most cases, people tend to go for less costly method. So we are talking about cost involved. Can you be able to manage the cost? So that is a factor to consider. Another factor is the end use of the packages. So we are talking about the users, the end use of the packages, where the package is to be taken. So you look at the transport packaging, and here we are saying that it should be matched to its logistic systems. So the end use of the package is a factor. Another factor, which I believe we also discussed it under the objectives or under the functions, is regulatory requirements for the package. So the method of packaging should adhere to the laws and regulations of the country. It will not go against the law. It should adhere to the laws and regulations of the country. Now, another factor is shelf life of the product. Here we are talking about, when you talk about the shelf life, this is the period the product will be used. So in that case, we are saying that packaging engineers need to verify that the package will keep the product safe for its intended shelf life. So shelf life is a very key factor if you are going to determine the method of packaging. Lastly, but not least, is recyclable or recyclability, I could put it that way, and environmental impact. Which impact is the method that you want to use are going to have to the environment. So that is a factor to consider. So these are factors which will determine the method of packaging. Now let's move on to the next part. The next part I want us to discuss briefly is on the types of packaging. Here it was to be types of packaging, or types of packages, as I had said earlier. Now we have various types of packages. Number one is drums. You can use drum as a way of packaging your content or the material. You can use boxes or cartons. That is a type of package. You can use crates. You know, crates are used to package sodas and other items. You can use sacks or bags, stroke bags. You can use containers, plastics and metallic. So containers can be plastic or can be metallic. You can use wrappers, you know, you wrap the material, and you can also use what? Bottles. So these are types of packages. Now, the last part we are going to handle is challenges of packaging. So we can simply go through them. One of the challenge of packaging is cost is one of the challenge. It's a factor and it's a challenge. Now, packaging adds to the cost of production and eventual retail price. So packaging is going to add to the cost of production, and this is a challenge because it is adding on the cost of production. It is making the product or the item to be bought at a higher price, and in that case, that is a challenge. Another challenge is that the products with more packaging use more resources in production. So here we're talking about just simply the footprint. So we are saying that the products with more packaging use more resources in production, and that is a challenge. Another challenge is the use of some plastic packaging and aerosol cans causes health hazards. We are also saying that sometimes packaging becomes deceptive, meaning it not really a good thing when the products of inferior quality, lower quality, poor quality, they are packed in attractive packages. So you could find products being packed in very attractive packages. And when you look at the product, they are of low quality, they are of inferior quality, and that in that way we are saying they become deceptive. That is a challenge. Again, the packages can easily be attacked by insect, by moths, etc. So that is also a challenge. We also have chemical reactions. They can spoil the product. It is also a challenge. Packaging can be bulky. That is another challenge. And lastly, we have lack of knowledge of the materials or requirements for packaging different products. So this is on the part of the people involved in packaging. They may lack the knowledge of the material or even the requirement packaging different products, and that is a big challenge. So those are the challenges of packaging, and I believe you have been able to understand the area that we have discussed well. Now for your assignment, there are here some questions which you can be able to go through them. They will also help you in your revision. So I will just read them to you. Number one is what is packaging? That is a question. Number two, you are told to name 4 types of packages, only 4. You're also told to highlight 4 challenges encountered when devising packaging system. So what challenges do you encounter if you are devising a packaging system? And lastly, you are told to discuss 4 factors in determining the method of packaging. So that is some of the questions. You can do them, and they will help you in your revision. So this marks the end of our presentation for today, and I wish you a nice time.